Since I was a child, I've always been fascinated with filmmaking. I've spent many years studying media and watching creators blow up on social media. What we don't realize is there's a whole new set of rules to create popular content on social media. Yet, we don't pay enough attention to what those rules are. So here's 5 important rules that traditional media doesn't teach you if you want to be a YouTuber. Number 1 being the jump cut. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the jump cut before, but there's more to it than just cutting out the jumps and the stutters in your videos to help make it flow better. Yes, doing this does make a difference, because if we didn't cut out these breaks and silences, it's going to look a little bit like that. Really awkward, really boring, and people are not likely to keep watching your video because there is a awkward silence, or it's just not very entertaining. But what I really want to talk about is how you can use the jump cut feature to make your videos flow on better and really cut to each scene. So every time you start a new topic, so you actually want to cut it right before the next scene starts so that it forms that J shape, and you can actually have the video snap right into place when it starts the new scene. So this is where I feel like the key to jump cuts really work, is you want to make sure that you're not just cutting off each scene and the next one just starts when you start speaking again, but you actually want to have that overlay to make it more snappier, to make it move to the next scene more snappier. It just flows a lot better and makes that video easier to watch. So with each new scene that you start talking, you want to make sure that there is that overlay between the previous scene and the new scene that is starting. That's why the jump cut technique really is useful for storytelling with movie making, is because it cuts to the next scene in a way that keeps the audience engaged. Number 2 is to ensure each cut is motivated. So what I mean by this is when you have B-roll or when you have another scene that it's jumping to, it needs to be motivated by the previous scene. So this may not be something that you notice, but when you look at popular videos like some of Logan Paul's videos or Mr. Beast videos or all of those popular creators, you'll find that every single scene is motivated. It's not just there. There's a reason that scene is there, and it has a purpose to the video. Each scene that it jumps to needs to have a correlation to what you're showing on the screen. So that's why it's really important, if you are using B-roll, whether it's a really cool drone shot or whatever it might be, it needs to have meaning and be related to what you're actually talking about, and that next scene that it jumps to must relate to what you were previously talking about. You want each scene to really flow onto the next one so that the audience doesn't actually realize that the scene is changing and you're keeping them engaged. So before you start talking about the next topic, you almost want to introduce that topic in the previous scene so that it flows much better and becomes more like a story than a whole lot of scenes cut together. So that's why I make sure that I have a story set out so that I know that when each scene changes, there's going to be a flow in between, and I know exactly what my next scene is going to be so that I can make sure that it flows on correctly. That's why storytelling is really important when you're creating a video. You need to know exactly what you're going to cover, how you're going to make it flow, and how you can improve that storytelling to make the video entertaining. And the best way that I like to do this is to ensure that I leave my most favorite scene to the very last. Which brings us to tip number 3, where you leave that idea that excites you to the very last. This is what's going to help you keep motivated and make sure that you actually finish the video and you put as much effort as you can. If you start off with the scene that you are most excited about, you're gonna put all of your effort into that one scene, and then every other scene is probably gonna show that you didn't really care about it, you didn't have the same motivation behind it, and that's really gonna show in your final cut. Your audience more than likely will be able to tell he didn't really care as much about this scene. This scene feels lazy. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like it needs to be there, and you really don't want this to happen when you're creating a video. You wanna make sure that each scene has as much dedication, as focus as you can, and this is why it's really important to leave that favorite content to the very last. That makes you motivated to finish all the other scenes first to get to that really spicy scene that you've been excited to create from the start. I find this technique really helps to motivate me to keep creating content and to keep me focused on that scene that I really want to create. Not only have I put a lot of effort into some scenes that probably did take 80% of my time, if I leave that to the very last scene that I create, it's really going to keep me motivated to make the whole video and to ideally keep me focused to make the best content that I can by not focusing all my effort into that one scene that's really going to show in my final cut. Now, when you are really excited about that scene that you really wanted to create, you've put a lot of effort into it, put a lot of thought into it, and I'm sure you'll spend it many times thinking about how you're going to create that. The music in this video is also going to really be important and is going to be crucial to make that scene actually reach the right audience, and the music is really going to help you do this. This brings me to number 4, which is why you don't want to neglect the music in your video. The music is really important, and if you choose the wrong music, it's really going to show in your final cut, and if done poorly will distract your audience, and more than likely they will leave your video. This is really going to hurt your video. This will really help your video, especially on YouTube, because we all know how important that audience retention is. This is why music is really going to help that audience retention, because you need to make sure that each music that you choose for that scene has purpose and actually fits the scene. If you just add willy-nilly all of these free musics that you have on iMovie or whatever it might be, that's really going to show in the final scene, because it's going to feel out of place. It might even feel a little awkward, and like I said, more than likely will encourage your audience to actually leave because they just are not feeling it, and the music just does not make them want to stick around. It just becomes distracting and makes people want to leave. When finding the right music, you need to make sure that it actually has a purpose as to what you're talking about and it fits the mood. The mood is really important. Now, when you're thinking about the mood, it's really important is to come up with ideas that you know are going to work well and it's going to reach a large audience. And this brings me to tip number 5, where you want to steal your idea. Now, what do I mean by this? You don't want to just go out and copy other creators. That is not what I'm talking about. But if we look through filmmaking, if we look through all of social media, films, movies, all of that stuff, you'll actually find a lot of the times people have recreated different scenes. If you look through many movies, you'll find correlation between a lot of scenes that people have basically stolen that idea and recreated it as their own. This is why I say you got to steal ideas to essentially give you ideas for your own filmmaking. The reason why I say steal ideas is because as long as you make it your own, as long as you create it yourself, it's going to be different because you are unique and you are your own person, and therefore it's going to be different and unique and special because you are your own person. This is why stealing your ideas is never risky in my mind, as long as you put your own creativity into it, and you as a film creator will make something special, will make something different that won't look like you've just stolen somebody else's idea. As long as you put your own ideas into it, your own creativity, people are not going to look at that and be like, you stole that from Mr. Beast or wherever you might have seen it from. As long as you bring your own creativity, you add your own flavor to it, that scene is going to be awesome and special, just like the filmmaker that you are. As long as you're creating your own content, putting your own ideas into it, it's always going to be unique. It's always going to be different because you created it. Filmmaking is hard, especially if you're trying to grow on social media, especially if you're trying to grow on YouTube. These 5 important tips are really going to help you show what techniques work to help you grow on social media, and it's really going to show you 5 tips that are actually going to encourage an audience to stick around, to keep watching your videos, and this is essentially how you're going to grow, because you're making unique content that your audience enjoys, and they're going to keep coming back for more content. If you did find this video helpful, make sure you check out this video. It's really going to help you grow your audience in a way that keeps them sticking around.